Well, good morning. I hope you are doing very, very well. I am doing quite well today because we happen to be in one of the nicest towns on the west coast of the country, maybe the nicest town on the west coast of the country. We are in Fort Bragg, and to give you an idea of where we are, Fort Bragg here is about 170 miles northwest of San Francisco, and they call this the Redwood Coast. Fort Bragg sits right on the Pacific coastline. There is the Pacific Ocean to the west and a mountain range with lots of redwoods and other trees to the east. So I've been hanging out here in Fort Bragg for the last few days, and I have been enjoying it immensely. I cannot tell you how nice of a town this is. So today I thought I'd get out and do a little walking this morning. There's a park over on the east side of town that I haven't been to before, so I thought that would be a good place to try out today since it's a nice cool morning, and it'd be good to do a little walking out there, I think. I do have a little project I need to get to today as well. We'll do that a little bit later. But first, I've got to pay my rent. Yes, I live in a van, but I still have rent to pay. So we will do that by grabbing our coffee cup here and heading over just a couple blocks to a local coffee shop. So last night I parked next to the Baptist church here, which is rather convenient because we're just a couple blocks from the locals' favorite place for coffee called Headlands Coffee House, I believe. Once we get the coffee, we'll go take a walk over at that park I mentioned, and then I'll explain about the rent situation that I have going on. I should mention that there are a bunch of really good coffee places here in town. It's a really good coffee town, but we're heading to the locals' coffee spot. I just spilled coffee all over my shoulder. Oh well. I forgot to mention that place is cash only, so if you do come here, just remember, bring some cash with you, although they do have an ATM nearby. I'm ready. Okay, back to the van here. I'm trying to clean up my little coffee mess. It's kind of funny. I don't know how I spilled coffee all the way up my shoulder that way. I guess that's just the hazards of walking and trying to record yourself at the same time. At least it is for me anyway. Now, I am very happy with my cup of coffee. Last time I was at Headlands Coffee House, they only had a very dark roast decaf, and this one's actually a light roast decaf. So perfect for me. I'm very happy with it. Let's go take a little walk in the park, which is just another few blocks away from us at the moment. Actually, looking at the map here, it's several blocks away from us. So we are just going to drive down there instead of walking down to the park. So this is the parking area for Otis R. Johnson Wilderness Park. It's at the end of Laurel Avenue. But before we take a little walk, I need to eat something. I'm really not all that hungry, so I'm just going to finish off some of this yogurt that I opened up a few days ago. Coffee and yogurt is a fine breakfast, if you ask me. Okay, I'm about ready for a short walk, a very short walk. But I just want to mention, if you do come out here, this parking area is pretty tiny. I think there's spots for about a dozen cars, and there are some parking restrictions that change according to the seasons here. So just something to keep in mind. But let's take a very short little walk. So I'm saying I'm going to take a short walk because I have to mind my energy levels a little bit. And from what I know, this is a pretty big park with lots of trails. And I believe if you go back a little bit farther in this park, it gets fairly steep. That's what I've heard anyway. So we're not going to be out here for too long. But what a beautiful place this is. What an absolutely stunningly beautiful place this is. So let's talk about rent. I mentioned earlier that even though I live in a van, I still have rent to pay. And that doesn't mean I have a rent check to a landlord. What it means is that wherever I park, at night, I always spend money in that area. So since I'm parking here in town, I feel obligated to spend money here in town. And it's something that I encourage everybody that lives in a van to do. I notice that when we do that, the locals of the towns that we are staying in notice. They notice that we are spending money in their town. They also notice when we don't spend money in their town, and I think that that's important. We can, I think, become a burden on towns if we're not putting some money into the local economy. I'm winded, as you can probably tell, going up those steps. That's what I was saying. I got to kind of watch my energy levels. Anyway, so I like to put as much money into the economy, local economy, as I can by spending my money in small local businesses. So it's easiest for me just to go to a coffee shop and to buy coffee. Now, there's other things that I need to spend money on, of course. Been spending a lot of money on groceries since I've been here in Fort Bragg, and that's one of the things that is not so great about Fort Bragg. There are just a few grocery stores here, so food prices are pretty outrageous. So I have been spending quite a lot of money, and I have been shopping at the local grocery store instead of going to the mega chain that's here in town. I won't name them, but we all know who they are. There's no Walmart actually here either, so there's no way to get cheap food necessarily. So I don't really mind that for the short period of time that I do spend here. I try to come here a couple of times a year, although I don't usually get here quite that much. But it is the one thing that is not so great about Fort Bragg. It's just, it is kind of an expensive place. And part of that is because of where we are here. That's the other kind of drawback to coming down here to Fort Bragg, is that we are behind what they call the Redwood Curtain. So you got to drive through some mountains to get to this area, and it's not the easiest drive to get here. So as you can imagine, things like gas and food and other supplies are a little harder to get out here, and so the price is a little bit more, unfortunately. But those are the really just two drawbacks of the area. Other than that, I just have glowing things to say about this area. It's just incredible here and definitely worth the money. But even though it is expensive, I do stick to my rule that if I park someplace, I'm spending money in a place, and so I've been making it a priority just to buy an extra coffee or two here and there, along with the gas and the groceries and the other things that I have to buy. I just realized I probably said that with a grimace on my face, and I don't mean to make it sound like I'm upset about the money that I'm spending here. I'm quite happy to spend the money that I have, the little money that I have here in a community that I really appreciate and enjoy. It's just that I get winded really easily, so that's why I was grimacing. But I've stood here for a couple of minutes, and now I'm back to normal, so I can get back to walking along and smiling. So, you know, those of you that like to tell me to smile more often, here I go, I'm smiling. There, you like that? I'll do it again. So Fort Bragg here is probably best known for Glass Beach, and that's a beach that people come from all over to see. What a lot of people don't realize is that it was actually a garbage dump at one time. Garbage was just thrown off onto the coast, and over years the glass that was thrown out there is turned into sea glass. It's little pieces of glass that have been tumbled over and are smooth, and different colors of glass out there. But I don't know if people really realize that. It's a little odd to me that people are coming from all over to check out a garbage dump. So it's not a favorite place of mine to go to. The other thing is that people take the glass, which you're not supposed to. I think there's a $500 fine for removing glass from Glass Beach, but most people don't seem to realize that. I was out there the other day and I was watching people just picking up glass and filling up their pockets full. I guess they didn't know, or maybe they don't care. I don't know, one or the other. But I just think it's kind of odd that people drive forever to get here. It's not very easy to get here to Fort Bragg. No matter how you get here, it's out of the way. So you got to drive forever to get here, and then they go to this place that they have heard about, they want to see, and then what do? They steal the glass from the beach so that nobody else can go and see the glass on the beach. So I don't know, for me, I don't really ever go down to Glass Beach. It's just not a place that I kind of vibe with. Well, that was delightful. Kind of funny, as I was leaving, I met a couple that said that they've lived here for 26 years, and this is the first time they've been through the park themselves. And I told them, well, this is my first time here too. So we chatted for a few minutes about it. It's kind of funny, whenever I'm in an area that is near the ocean, I just ignore all the places that aren't near the ocean. So that's why I haven't been to this park before, but there we go. Now that I know that it's here, I'll definitely be back. I've got a project I wanted to get done today, but before I do that, I have been craving fruits. Now what I have here is some fruit I've been trying to ripen up. I bought a bunch of pears the other day, and none of them were even remotely ripe. So I was hoping that these would be ready to go. Looks like this one might be. Not sure about the other one here, but we'll give it a try. Kind of wash this up and give it a try. But this is all the fruit that I have. Because of the grocery prices here, I have been buying nothing but absolute necessities. And I have kind of put fruit and vegetables not in the necessity pile. I don't really think that they should be in the necessity pile. There we go. That'll get people angry at me. The truth is, I want some more fruit. So I'll probably eat both of these today if they are ready to be eaten. I'm going to eat this one regardless. But that means we should probably just pop over to the store. I could buy some fruit, maybe some veg, and then after that, I'll get to my little project. Oh, these are possibly overripe, but they are much better than the first ones I ate. It's funny, I checked these yesterday, they were still hard as a rock, but today they are slightly overripe. Oh well. Oh, that was a mighty good pear. It was slightly overripe though, so I'm going to definitely have to eat that other one today before it goes bad. But we will buy some more fruits at the grocery store. The only problem here is the grocery store is all the way across town, but I guess it's worth it for necessities. You can tell that I'm more of a small town guy these days when I said that getting to the grocery store here was all the way across town. Fort Bragg here is a pretty tiny city, so it's not very far at all. But I've just been gravitating to smaller cities versus bigger ones. So just cracked myself up when I thought about that. Anyway, let's go in and pay a little bit more rent. We are not even going to talk about how much that costs me. I could have gone over to Safeway and I could have maybe saved a couple dollars on a couple of things, but I only bought kind of necessities. So I bought some bread, and this is local bread, which is pretty expensive, but maybe the best sourdough I've ever had. So Fort Bragg Bakery sourdough, really good. Not quite sure it's worth the price, but it's very, very good. And I bought some local apples. That's one thing that's Safeway is not going to carry. These are Gravenstein apples, if that's the correct way to say that. They are right from the area, so that kind of fits what I like to do. Buying more stuff from the area is what I want to do. I bought some pasta. I very rarely eat pasta, but because I've been spending so much money on food, I thought maybe this is a way that I can kind of save a little bit. I'm not, I'm doing okay, but I've just been spending so much money that it might be good to just kind of cut back here and there when I can, so that's why I'm doing the pasta. I very rarely eat pasta, but I could probably do, you know, something with that. And then for vegetable, I bought some cabbage because fairly cheap, and I can use it for a number of different things. This is one of the things. Probably this and the pasta may have been a little cheaper at Safeway. The bread and the apples I would not have been able to buy at Safeway, I don't think. So this works for me, and again, this is paying my rent. I want to spend as much money as I can in the community that I'm in, and shopping at Harvest Markets here, which is the local store, means that a little bit more of that money that I'm spending stays in the community. It's that thing that I kind of am driving home here today. I think everybody should try to do that. I understand trying to save some money and just going to Walmart, if that's around. There's no Walmart here. Saving some money that way, I understand that, but I think whenever we can spend a little bit more on the local places, keep our money locally, it's just better for everybody, including us, since we are staying here. I mean, I am a Fort Bragg local here this week, so I should be acting like one. I've had a little touch of allergies this past week since I've been here, so I went into a Harvest Market to buy some more tissue. And do you know that the cheapest Kleenex box of tissues they had was $3 for a tiny little box? And I said, no way, because that's kind of insult to injury. I'm already a little bit annoyed that I've got a drippy nose. Now I need to spend $3 so that I can blow my drippy nose. And so I walked out of there and said, no, forget about it. And then I almost went into the dollar store, which is right here in the same parking lot, Dollar Tree, I think. And then I remembered that I have a backup toilet paper roll. So I thought this will be my Kleenex. But after using this for a couple of days, this is really annoying. When my nose gets drippy all of a sudden, especially when it's later in the evening, it's a little cooler out, I tend to have a kind of drippier nose. And so I have to kind of fumble with this. So I think I'm just gonna pop into Dollar Tree here and buy some Kleenex so I don't have to use the toilet paper. Hopefully they'll have something that's not $3 a box. That was probably worth the effort of going over there. I bought a box of tissues. It's kind of a small box, but it was $1.50. They're not very soft though. They feel a little bit like communist style tissues. Oh well, much better than having to deal with a roll of toilet paper. And since I was in there, I bought some paper towel. I normally buy paper towel at Target, but there's no Target anywhere near here, and I'll probably be here for a while, so I'm probably going to need to buy some more paper towel. I don't think they're as good of a price as Target sells. Usually buy the Target brand's paper towels, and these I think were more expensive, and each roll is smaller, but at least it's better than the other prices in town, and I'll need these pretty soon. Anyway, I guess that was worth going in there. Okay, I need some lunch, so let's go find a place to park, and I can heat up some leftovers from yesterday. So this is Pomo Dunes Park, and this is Noyo Headlands that we're looking at across the bay. This is Noyo Bay, and then there under the bridge is the Noyo River. And wow, I'm standing right at the edge of the cliff. I don't like this so much. I walked right up to the edge there, talking, trying to show you what it looks like here without realizing that there's a cliff right there, and I don't like heights. So we'll retreat back a safe distance here and get some lunch going. The high temperature today was supposed to be about 65 degrees, but I don't think it's even that warm, and I'm liking it. Probably has something to do with the wind that has picked up this afternoon and making it feel a little bit cooler out. But I always like the cooler weather, so I'm here for this. The only thing I wished we would get a little bit more of is some rain. I'm still waiting for some good rain. We've had a little bit, but not much at all. So that's when I start to get really happy. Once the rain gets here and we get into the rainy season and the cool weather, that's when I'm really happy. So I'm heating up a little bit of leftovers. I made some chili last night, so I have about a cup of that, maybe a cup and a half of that. So probably to go with that, I will make up a grilled cheese sandwich because I do have a little bit of bread left over from the last loaf I bought. So while that's warming up, I will prep up a grilled cheese sandwich to go with it. I think I'm going to be finished with my chili by the time my sandwich finishes cooking. Got a little ways to go here. I can hear some seals barking down below there, but I think they're right at the edge of this cliff here, so I can't see them. I can definitely hear them, although as soon as I picked up the phone to record, I can't hear them anymore. They know I'm trying to get them on camera, I guess. What I can hear is that infernal foghorn, or whatever that is, over there, blowing away. I got distracted by the seals. Let's see if I burned my sandwich. Oh no, it's a little toasty, but not too bad. The reason that Fort Bragg here is so special to me is that the first time I ever came here, I had spent several months in Arizona right before, and I spent quite a bit of time in Arizona and really enjoyed it. And then I moved to Nevada, didn't quite like that nearly as much. And then I came back into California, but I was on the other side of the state of California, and it was hot, really hot. And I was just really looking mostly to get someplace cooler. But after spending all that time in the deserts and not being around water at all, I really wanted to get back to the coast. And so I looked at a map, and from where I was on the other side of the state, I just needed to take one highway to get to the coast. That was Route 20. It would take me right from where I was straight down here to Fort Bragg. And I thought, you know, it's so simple. I can't mess it up. I just stay on Route 20 and I'll get to the coast. And that's how I wound up here for the first time. And it's probably because of all the months that I had spent in Arizona not being around water at all, that it just felt a little bit more special here. Plus it was nice and cool. I think when I was over on the other side of California, it was in the mid 90s when I left there. And when I got here, it was in the low 60s. And it was just the perfect place for me to be. And so this will always be that special place just because of all of that. But even beyond that, this is just so beautiful out here. It's just so incredibly beautiful out here. So I was mentioning earlier that Fort Bragg is mostly known for Glass Beach, but there's another attraction that brings people here. It's called the Skunk Train, and it's an actual locomotive. It leaves from right downtown, and it takes you out on a very long trip through the mountains. And it's supposed to be very beautiful. I guess the scenery and all is really pretty, and then once they get to the destination, there's a dinner and a brewery, I think, too, out there. I've looked into it because being that it's a train ride, I would really like to do that, but it's a bit pricey, so I've been putting that off. Maybe someday I'll do that, treat myself and do that. But it looks very cool, and it is one of the other things that draws people here to Fort Bragg just to do the Skunk Train. It's surprising how chilly it is out here. That wind seems to be picking up more and more as the day goes on, so that means it is coffee time for me. I'm going to get the kettle on. Before I came down here to Fort Bragg, I stopped at my favorite coffee roaster up in Humboldt County and got 2 bags of their decaf coffee because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get this down here. And I am already mostly through the first bag. I probably should have got 3 bags of this, I may have to go back to Humboldt quickly, more sooner than I had planned. Maybe I'll need to go back to Headland's Coffee House where I was this morning and buy more coffee from them if I do run out of fog line coffee, because the weather's cool enough now. I'm drinking a lot of coffee and I don't want to stop. Well, I just remembered I've got a repair I got to get to. I had a project I wanted to do today, which I don't think I'm going to be able to do, but the repair I need to do has to happen today. I forgot to take care of it yesterday. I actually had a propane line spring a leak on me 2 nights ago. It's quite a little problem for a few minutes there. So this is the line that sprung the leak, and it's odd because this is a fairly new propane hose. So I'm a little bit surprised that it started to leak. It was leaking right here between the hose and this crimp, and it was leaking very, very slowly. I'm surprised that I even noticed it. But as soon as I went to touch it, because I was thinking that there was something wrong here, so when I went to touch this, it was hooked up to this tank here, it just started to spray out very, very fast. So I lost a lot of propane all of a sudden, which was kind of a problem because this tank was almost empty already, and that was not good because it was late in the evening, and I was thinking, am I going to have enough time to get to the hardware store and to buy a new hose and get to some place to refill this tank? I wasn't quite sure. So I did manage to make it to the hardware store just in time. I got there about 15 minutes before they closed, and I bought a new hose. So I'm going to switch out the old hose with this hose. Hopefully it'll last a little bit better. That last hose I bought from Amazon because I wanted to find a braided hose. I thought it would last a little bit better, be a little bit more abrasion resistant, but for some reason it didn't work out quite so well with that hose, maybe because I bought it from Amazon. So hopefully this hose will be better. This is just your basic rubber hose. And then because I wasn't sure I was going to make it from the hardware store to the propane fill place, I had to get some propane just to get me tied over. So I bought a little green bottle of propane to run my stove on for the time being. So I now have both of the tanks filled up. I got those filled up yesterday. So I just need to be prepared for when that little green bottle runs out. I generally get a couple of days of use out of those, maybe 3 or 4 days at the most. So I need to swap this around to be ready to get some propane out of my big tanks before I run out, because I don't really like to run out. Okay, I got the new hose in. It's a little shorter than the old hose. Hopefully that's not going to be a problem, but I've got it run over, and so as soon as that green bottle runs out, I can just hook it up on the other side and then turn the gas on, so I don't have to worry about that. And this tank that I'm using here is kind of a special size. It's a 2.2 gallon tank. It's the same diameter as a barbecue tank, a 20-pound barbecue tank, but it's about half of the height. So it's a nice tank for me that I don't have a lot of space back here. I know it looks a little messy back here, but you know, I've said this before, but if you haven't heard that, this is all kind of temporary wiring. Anyway, so it's been a good tank. I used to have 2 of these 2.2 gallon tanks, and you can get just about 2 gallons in them, maybe just over 2 gallons in them. So I liked that. It gave me plenty of propane. When I would run out of one, I would just switch over to the other. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to fit them both back here, so I had to get rid of one of them, and I replaced it with a 5-pound tank, and I think that holds just over a gallon, or just about a gallon. So that's what this other one is. So my idea is, when I use up the bigger tank, I switch over to the smaller tank, and then I know I've got a few days before I've got to go get them both filled up. Now, over the years, I've had a lot of questions from people that were nervous about the fact that I'm running propane appliances in my van, And it seems like it comes down to the fact that I've got larger propane tanks. Now, of course, my propane tanks aren't as big as a regular barbecue tank, but it's bigger than a little green bottle of propane. And it seems like when I talk to people, that's the issue. It seems like most people are comfortable with the little green bottles, but once it gets to be more propane, they're not quite so comfortable with that. But I do like to just point out that it's usually never the tank that causes the issue. Now, the tank can be an issue, of course, but newer tanks are pretty safe. And most of the time, if there's an issue, it's going to be not because of the tank, but because of either the appliance or most likely the hose. And that's been my experience. Now, I've been running propane for, I don't know, 8 years or so, maybe a little more than 8 years. I stopped using butane stoves and switched over to propane stoves. And the only real issue I've had is if I don't replace my hoses often enough, then I have a problem like this. Now, this is kind of a strange problem because this hose is only about 8 months old at the most. So I am a little bit perplexed about it, but also I did buy this hose on Amazon from it's a no-name brand hose, so probably did this to myself in this case. But usually it is because the problems that I've had with hoses is because I've just not replaced them enough. I think I like to replace them once a year or at least once every other year. When I was down in the deserts, I found that they would dry out quite a bit faster, and so I definitely need to stay to that once a year replacement schedule. If I didn't, they would get really dry and brittle, and then I did have trouble with them. It was always the hose. Never had any trouble with my appliances or the propane tanks themselves. I've just always had trouble with the hoses. So I just like to point that out. So if you're nervous about me having propane in my van, this is the reason that I'm not so nervous about it, is I know that it's usually a simple hose situation, and it's not something that you should need to spend a whole lot of time worrying about. There are other things to worry about, lots of other things to worry about than a little propane hose. So I just like to replace them often. The other thing that I do is I like lots of ventilation. So you probably notice I've got two ventilation fans. These vents stay open all the time. I don't care what the temperature is outside. I keep them open all the time. I never close them. And of course, a lot of the time I have my doors open. So like right now I've got my back hatch open, and a lot of times I've got my side door open as well, because I like lots of air movement. I like to feel like I'm outside. So with such a small leak like I have here, with my ventilation system, even if I've got the doors closed, it's really hard to tell that there's even a propane leak at all, because it just goes right out the vents. So there again, not something that you really should worry about too much, as long as you've got some safety measures in hand. And I do have some safety measures in hand. And this is probably falling on deaf ears here, because I find that usually people that are nervous about having anything other than a green bottle of propane in their vehicle don't want to hear it, that it's the hose that's the problem. That just seems to make them a little bit more nervous. But I mean, it still is the problem. Even if you're just using the little green bottles, you still need to replace those hoses quite often, because the hose is usually the issue, just like it was here today. There are some really cool houses in this neighborhood that surround this park. I kind of wonder what they think about having this little parking lot here, and lots of traffic all day long, people coming in and out. But then I start to think they probably have a much bigger problem: that stupid, incessant horn. I don't know if you can hear how loud that horn is on my microphone, but being here, it is very loud, and it goes all day and all night long. I don't usually park over here because I always feel bad for the people that live right here. If I lived here, I would probably wish that people would go to some of the other parks in the area and not come around to my neighborhood. So usually I don't come here usually go across to the other side. It's just as pretty, but there's actually more hiking trails on the other side there, and there's actually more parking too. So it's a little easier on the other side, and you know, it's just the same, except you don't have somebody's house right behind you and wondering, am I bugging them? Because if I were them and they were me, I'd probably be a little bit bugged, to be honest. I sort of forgot to do that project I wanted to get done today. I say sort of because I put the project on the back burner because it started to get windy out, and I don't think what I have to do here is going to be good in a windy environment. I need to treat my new shoes with some water resistant spray. I bought the water resistant spray here in town. There's a little company called the Outdoor Store here, and they sold Nick Wax, which is supposed to be a kind of a more natural version of like a Teflon or Scotchgard. So I'm going to give that a try, but I didn't want it to be so windy out. So I guess this project will have to wait for another day. But these are the shoes that I wanted to treat. These are my newest shoes. They're from a company called Wildling. These are actually my third pair of Wildling shoes. I really, really like these shoes. These are a barefoot shoe, and they're a little unusual. Barefoot shoes have kind of become a little bit more popular over the last few years, and now that I've started to wear them, I totally understand why. I don't ever want to wear anything other than these. In fact, I got rid of some of my more heavy-duty shoes, partly because they were a little bit wore out, but the other part is that I just don't find them to be comfortable at all anymore. Every time I'd wear them, even for as little as an hour, my feet would just bother me. My knees would bother me, my back would bother me. So these are the shoes that I am wearing now on the daily, and I don't want to ever not wear them. But if I'm going to stay up here in the Pacific Northwest through the winter, these fabric shoes are not really going to cut it. So I'm hoping that spray will help keep them from getting too wet once the rainy season gets here. I don't know if it's going to work quite so well, but I'm going to give it a try because I really like these shoes so much that I don't really want to think about getting anything else. So I'm going to try to work with these through the winter, and I've got to get to that before the rainy season starts because it's almost here. I mean, it's going to happen any day now. We're going to get the rain, and if you are familiar with Seattle weather, it's kind of the same down here. If it's rainy in Seattle, it's usually rainy down here. So I'm expecting to get lots and lots of rain through the winter. That is if I stay here all winter. I hope I do. Don't know. Since I am not doing a project, I will turn my attention to making dinner. So I'll put some sourdough bread down to toast a little bit. And I'm going to make a burger. A cheeseburger, I think. Cheeseburger. So the beef that I'm using for this burger here today was my rent payments 3 days ago. I needed some beef, and so I went into the local butcher shop called Brownman's Smokehouse right on Route 1 in downtown Fort Bragg here. And it is local beef, local in a sense. It's from Point Reyes, which is kind of down closer to San Francisco, but local enough. And it's interesting, it's got a heavier grind on it than most store-bought, like grocery store-bought beef. And it's very, very good and very tasty itself. It's all grass-fed beef, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. So very tasty, very good. And just pointing out that this was part of my rent, because that is what we're talking about today. I actually had something else planned for dinner tonight, but this will do. Adding a little bit of steak sauce on top, and I've got some cheddar cheese, some kosher dill relish, and some sun-dried tomatoes, which I tossed in the pan and got those warmed up and then threw on top of the melted cheese. So I think that looks pretty good. And then since I bought that cabbage earlier today, we'll add some cabbage to this. Maybe not entirely traditional for a burger, but I think that'll work just fine for me. So there we go. Not what I'd planned on having for dinner today, but I think that'll be all right. I'm not complaining. You know, many years ago, there was a restaurant up in Port Townsend, Washington called the Owl Spirit Cafe that used to sell a burger with sun-dried tomato on it, and it was the best thing I had ever had. I'd never heard of putting sun-dried tomato on a burger before. I'm sure a lot of people have done it. I just had never seen it before that. And I would go in there occasionally when I was working in the Seattle area and I could get out to Port Townsend on the weekends, and I would get that burger. And unfortunately, they stopped making that burger. They took it off the menu, and I was so sad when I found that out. The restaurant's still there. It still has a really good menu. The chef is just amazing. She's just absolutely amazing. But for whatever reason, she took that burger off the menu, and of course, it was my favorite thing. It was my favorite burger of all time. So this is my way to kind of recreate that. Oh, that burger was absolutely incredible. It's always a nice surprise when things exceed your expectations. Of course, that had nothing to do with me. I just put a bunch of really good ingredients together. That beef was just so good, combined with some of the best sourdough I've ever had. And then those sun-dried tomatoes just made it, along with everything else. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. Well, it's starting to get dark and it's starting to get chilly. So I guess that means we have made it through another day. So thank you everyone who watches these videos all the way through the end. I do really appreciate it. And I also just wanted to say that I know I've not been responding to every single comment like I did in years past. Just has been getting to be a little bit too time consuming for me to actually write out a comment. But I do really appreciate every comment that I read, because I do read every single one of them. Even the mean ones I read, because they're there. So please leave a comment, because I do read it and I do appreciate them. And thank you for hanging out with me, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.